Hey everybody, Nancy Cogar here, and welcome to Boomer Time. I have had the best week. I spent 3 wonderful days out on Laguna Beach in California. I know I've met a lot of you that have left California and now here in Tennessee, but I gotta say, it is a beautiful place. And I ate more than I should have. I was out there for training. I might even put a picture up of the shrimp boat that had lobster, shrimp about this big, clams, you name it. It's actually kind of obscene, but it was delicious, and I had a great time. And continued training is important to me. I'm probably going to go to Nashville this Friday, and I always want to stay on top of things. There's always different circumstances, and I like to share those things too. So if you've got an opportunity to, you need someone to speak on some of these things, I may be available. So you can see all that at nancycogar.com. So I'm always glad to share the information that I have. And I'm learning always, as I said. Well, today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, conservatorships. And more specifically, understanding those as they work here in Tennessee. And, really a word of caution for caregivers. So welcome to Boomer Time, where we talk all things aging, provide clarity on legal topics impacting your life and your loved ones' lives, along with, planning for your future estate. So I am your host, Nancy Cogar, and I am an elder law and estate planning attorney. And today, as I mentioned, we are diving into an important and often controversial world of conservatorships, more specifically here in Tennessee. These types of controversial conservatorships have been in the news a lot lately, and we're going to talk about some of those too. Maybe you've been following the Wendy Williams case. That's a strange one. Or the Britney Spears conservatorship. Remember that? So we're going to talk more about these and even some lessons that can be learned from those cases. So whether you're a caregiver or an older family member or someone who is concerned about their own future care, understanding conservatorships is crucial. But it's not all smooth sailing. There are serious pitfalls, like some of the things we saw in both those cases, and real life stories, which can be downright scary. Like I said, pop singer Britney Spears, she had the legal battle recently over her conservatorship, and TV host Wendy Williams, it seems unclear whether she needs a conservatorship at all. I thought it was important to look at these cases and remind us of some of the potential dangers that come with conservatorships. And also in this episode, I'm going to break down what a conservatorship is and how it works in Tennessee. And like I said, share a few cautionary tales to hopefully help you avoid some common mistakes. So let's get started. Welcome back to Boomer Time. We are talking conservatorships today. A conservatorship is a legal arrangement where a court appoints someone to manage another person's personal, financial, or medical affairs. Could be all of those, could be one. In Tennessee, a conservatorship may be established for individuals who are unable to care for themselves, and that may be due to age, illness, or a disability. The person appointed to be the conservator has a significant responsibility, often taking on the role of managing those finances, making healthcare decisions, and even overseeing daily living. Here's where things get tricky. So while conservatorships can be life-saving for some individuals who truly need help, they can also be ripe for abuse. It's because they are aimed at taking away a ward or the person who's the subject of a conservatorship, taking away their rights in these cases and giving them to someone else, i.e. the court-appointed conservator. Let's explore what happens when a conservatorship goes wrong and what you, as a caregiver or an adult child, should watch out for. Okay? So under Tennessee law, a conservatorship is established when a person is determined by a court to be incapable of handling their own personal or financial affairs. In other words, deemed to be incapacitated or disabled. And as I've said, this may be due to physical or mental health issues, including, but not limited to, dementia, a brain injury, or any condition that impairs someone's ability to manage their own life. In Tennessee also, conservatorships can be temporary or they can be permanent for a person's entire life. Temporary conservatorships are often put in place when someone has suffered a health emergency. Say they're incapacitated by a stroke, and there's an immediate need then to manage their affairs. And there's something missing here that I'm going to talk about in just a little bit that could help avoid all of this. Do you know what it is? Well, we'll talk about it in a minute. But so they're temporary conservatorships, and they're also permanent ones. And those can be established for individuals who are expected to be permanently incapacitated. Say someone has a disability, and if a parent even was managing that child for years, once they turn 18, there has to be a conservatorship. So this is often the case. And when it comes to an adult that may be otherwise incapacitated, sometimes family members, the only choice they have is to petition the court for a conservatorship. There are different types, as I've said. There's a conservatorship of the person. Okay, this involves making decisions about the individual's personal care, keeping them safe, health care, living arrangements, daily life management, bathing, keeping them clean in a safe environment. And there's also conservatorship of the estate. So this involves managing an individual's financial matters, such as paying bills, managing investments, and overseeing income. You can have both, too, a full conservatorship over the person and their estate. The process of establishing a conservatorship happens in court, okay? You have to file a petition with the court, and that petition must include a sworn, under oath report from that person's treating physician, which details the most recent assessment of that person and demonstrates that the person in question is unable to manage their affairs. Could be expansive, could be limited. The court will then appoint a lawyer to represent that person who is proposed to be under the conservatorship, sometimes called the ward. I indicated that before. And the attorney is appointed by the court in order to ensure the ward's interests are protected. You're talking about taking their rights away. So that person is known as an attorney ad litem. They represent the ward. The court also has an attorney which is called a guardian ad litem. And the person asking for the court conservatorship has a lawyer too. It's attorney for the petitioner. There's an investigation that goes by. The attorneys and the court's attorneys will report back to the court, and after that, the court will hold a hearing to review the evidence and determine whether a conservatorship is necessary. So you can imagine with 3 attorneys involved in a court procedure, this can be an expensive process. It's a legal process that requires significant documentation, a doctor's evaluation, to show the individual is truly incapacitated. Like I said, it's expensive, no doubt stressful, and just difficult. You're going to face continued court oversight and accounting. And there's a reason for that too, right? Want to make sure that people are not abusing their powers. So, we mentioned this earlier. We talk about real-life cautionary tales, and I want to talk about some of those. I'm going to take a quick break, though, and we'll be right back. So just to, reinforce to you, we're talking about conservatorships, which you have to have one granted by the court. You have to make a petition for that. And we really are talking about taking someone's rights away. And the reason for that, of course, is because they're not able to make decisions for themselves. They are putting themselves at risk, at a danger. They're not able to care for themselves. And someone needs to be appointed because of this incapacity or disability to help this person in that way. And I did want to mention also that, the court needs to examine these and have a finding of clear and convincing evidence. That is one of the highest standards under the law. So there has to be clear and convincing evidence. And the reason for that is because you're talking about taking someone's basic liberties away. It's serious stuff. Maybe in a future episode we'll talk about some of the rights that can be taken away in a conservatorship. And, just to reinforce, so the court is always looking at how limited, that conservatorship can be for obvious reasons, right? So if someone needs help with their health care, but they're still able to manage their finances, you may see a conservatorship just for the person in their health care. So these things can be abused, which obviously, if you have money, right, sometimes people can take advantage of a vulnerable person. I see it all the time. So I thought it would be good to talk about a few cautionary tales. And unfortunately, we've seen it, right out there in the news. Pop star Britney Spears, and then more recently, Wendy Williams, the TV host. While conservatorships are meant to protect these people in need, history has shown us that sometimes it can be abused, and these two very high-profile examples come to mind. So let's start with Britney, right? Maybe you don't, I'll refresh your memory, but in 2008, Britney Spears was placed under a conservatorship after she had a very public breakdown with her father, Jamie Spears. Her father was appointed as the conservator. So what began as an attempt to protect Britney from the pressures of fame, that spiraled into a 13-year-long legal battle over the control of her life. You can imagine, right? For years, Britney had little say in her life about her own finances, her personal life, and even her health care. Her father was the one making the decisions for that, under the court's supervision. So it wasn't until 2021 that the conservatorship was terminated. And it was terminated after a public outcry. Remember the Free Britney movement that was all over the media? That's not how those things normally end, but it's a great example of how a conservatorship can go awry. So Britney's case is a prime example of how conservatorships can be misused. In her case, it lasted far longer than anyone expected. There was a lack of transparency, even though her father was the one that was the conservator, but it left many people questioning whether the conservatorship really served Britney's best interests or whether it become all about control. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of money there. So now let's talk about Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams, the talk show host. She's been struggling with health issues in recent years. She's been very public about that, including Graves' disease and complications from other health conditions. In 2022, her brother and a financial institution, which can be appointed as a conservator, were appointed as co-conservators to manage Wendy's financial matters. Okay, so the concern here is different than Britney's, but still important. Even when a conservatorship is created to protect someone's finances, it can also remove their ability to make decisions about their own future. So, with someone like Wendy Williams, she's very successful talk show host, media person, radio talk show host. So, I'm sure she had significant assets. So, if there's someone that is now over control of that and she is not, that's ripe for a dispute. And so the question is whether she really needs it or not, and that has become an ongoing legal battle. Both of these cases highlight what I would say is a delicate balance that conservatorships must maintain. They're meant to protect, but they can also unintentionally strip someone of their basic constitutional rights and their autonomy, their right to make decisions about themselves. So that's a real risk, and I wanted to make sure to talk about some of that in addition to the process of conservatorship. So I'm going to take a quick break to have a sip of coffee, and when I come back, we'll talk about warning signs you should watch out for. If you see these red flags in a conservatorship, you might want to take a closer look. Be right back. Welcome back to Boomer Time. I'm your host, Nancy Cogar, and I am so glad you're here today. I love doing this podcast, and hopefully you're learning some things, becoming more aware of things, issues that come up as you age, and the importance of estate planning. So remember when I said there is one item that can really remove you from even considering a conservatorship in the future? The best protection? Get your estate plan done. You are giving someone else the authority to make decisions for you when you are not able to, so they don't have to go to court. That is the best protection. So those of you out there that have not done this yet, come on. I'll walk you through it. So reach out and schedule a strategy session. It's not as scary as you think. So before the break, I was talking about warning signs and things to watch out for if you are observing a conservatorship, say you're another family member, or, have a family member that's under a conservatorship. There's some red flags that you really want to watch out for. So, I've shown what could go wrong with two very visible cases, Wendy Williams and Britney Spears. Let's talk about some red flags you should be aware of if you're navigating a conservatorship. Like I said, either as a caregiver or someone who may need a conservatorship. First of all, lack of transparency. So if a conservator isn't transparent about their decisions, especially when it comes to money or healthcare decisions, that is a serious warning sign. You should be regularly updated about what's going on, especially if you're a family member or someone close to the individual that's under the conservatorship. The conservator, as I mentioned also, is responsible to report back to the court periodically. So they should be submitting reports to the court about the ward's condition, finances, and general well-being. Financial control is another obvious and very serious red flag. So I would say be especially cautious if the conservator is overly controlling of financial matters without any clear explanation. They have a responsibility to manage the money, but there's a certain amount of transparency that needs to be there. A conservator should not, absolutely not, be using the ward's funds for their own personal gain or take excessive control without checking in with the court. That's a responsibility. Another red flag would be just absolute disregard for the ward's wishes. Conservators are appointed for the best interest of the individual under the conservatorship, and they must act in the best interest. This doesn't mean they can completely disregard a person's wishes, but if the person under the conservatorship is still mentally competent in some areas, their preferences should be taken into account. Unfortunately, in both Britney Spears and Wendy Williams' case, there was a lack of attention to their voices. And that's an important aspect of this. Another red flag is just duration, the length of the conservatorship. So be wary if a conservatorship lasts longer than necessary. If the person's condition improves or they regain some abilities, a conservatorship, can be reevaluated, and sometimes that's exactly what should happen. A conservatorship should not become a permanent fixture in someone's life unless absolutely necessary. So, keep an eye on some of these things so you can protect yourself or a loved one. As you consider whether a conservatorship is the right option, there's some steps you can take to protect yourself and your loved one. Consider alternatives, okay? Before pursuing a conservatorship, explore less restrictive alternatives. I talk about this all the time, like durable powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, and sometimes in some circumstances, joint bank accounts work. But I should do another episode on that because that creates all kinds of unintentional issues. But these can be things that will help trusted individuals with the authority they need to keep, paying bills, managing things without a full conservatorship. Of course, the person needs to have the capacity to make those powers of attorney, but that's an important part of estate planning, right? So, like I said, the number one way to avoid a conservatorship is to have personalized estate planning in place that includes both durable health care and durable general financial powers of attorney. These give someone you trust the authority to make decisions for you if and when you can't, and do not require court intervention or the intervention of attorneys unless there is some dispute. So I hope this has been helpful to you today. This is complicated stuff. And, as I mentioned earlier, I think we're going to do another episode kind of talking more about the rights that can be taken away. I think these are things that we don't normally think about. They're just such a part of our lives that it just becomes second nature. So I really appreciate you watching today. And if you've not done it already, go to my website, nancycogar.com, and subscribe, or go to YouTube and follow us there so you don't miss any more episodes of Boomer Time. I'll see you next time.